Joining us now, our Monday NHL insider and regular, the co-host of the Bob McCown podcast and the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, our friend Mr. John Shannon here with Sekeres and Price. How you doing, John?
Happy Monday, boys.
So Canucks have won 3 in a row. They got Vegas coming up Tuesday. What do you think? Stranger things have happened. Are you starting to follow them a little more closely on your...
I follow them every day. Are you kidding me? Sure, absolutely. This is one of those ones, though, where I've looked at the standings. I've looked at all the schedules for all the teams. And you're gonna laugh. Maybe you guys have talked about it, but I think the LA Kings are the team that if Vancouver's going to make the playoffs, it's the LA Kings they're going to catch.
I'm with you. We talked about this on Friday, that if there's a team that's going to implode with the youth and injury combinations that the Kings have going on, and plus over the course of the weekend, the math just got a lot easier for the Canucks and Vegas in the Pacific than it did.
And it's one thing to catch the Kings, but you got to then leapfrog Vegas. Then you have to say then that the Vegas Golden Knights are also going to stub their toe as they get set to welcome Mark Stone back as well. So they're getting better. They're feeling better about themselves. They're winning games. That's a lot to ask for those two teams now to stub their toe.
Yeah, but tomorrow night, that's an important game tomorrow night, needless to say. And then that Friday night game, the Thursday night game to end the regular season. At Rogers Arena against LA. That to me, that Thursday night, 28th of April, could be worth something, could mean something between the Kings and the Canucks. And they just might be the team. I'm assuming they can leapfrog Vegas anyway. But I would, I remember talking to you guys the first week in December saying, well, there's no way they're going to get out of this hole. They're too deep in the hole. They're going to have to play at a certain level just to get to 500. Well, you know what? They're over 500 now. And they have surprised everybody every time. Just when you think they're down and out, boom, 3 more victories. This is a team with resilience and character right now. And as I said, I'm pointing to the 28th of April, a home game against the Los Angeles Kings to be the most important game of the season.
John has continuing in a theme of John correcting me, telling me I'm wrong for being too presumptuous on certain Canucks files this year.
Come on
JT
now, man.
Miller, you are my Yoda, Mr. Shannon, this year.
No. It's one of those things where it's at times when you're close to the glass, you don't see the whole picture. And if you take a step back, Matt, and that's what when I was able to take a step back and talk to a few people outside of Vancouver, though that was what became more obvious than anything, that everybody kept asking the same question about Miller, particularly. Why would they do that? And I didn't have a good answer.
On behalf of all of us in the market, continue to correct Matt at whatever pace you like.
Forests and trees, yes. John, let me ask you this. Do you think the Kings management, you think Rob Blake and that group regret not fortifying a little more at the deadline? They didn't do a whole lot, LA, and I know they have a great collection of young players, and I know this might be a little bit sooner than they anticipated competing, but they didn't do much to fortify a team that was already had some injuries back at the deadline. You think there are any regrets there?
I don't think so. I think that when you look at what they have done, and really, in many ways, improved much quicker than I think most of us anticipated. I mean, we thought all 3 teams in California were going to be bad. We all did, and LA has become competitive, and I think that they might be a little ahead of the curve. And then you can't predict when Drew Doughty's not going to be able to, play. You can't predict that, how bad that hand is, whether he needed surgery or not. From that perspective, I think that this is all found money for those guys, saying, listen, this is how good we can be. This is as good a coaching job Todd McLellan has ever done in my mind with that band of characters. And no Dustin Brown part of this thing, no Doughty for the most part. They've had solid goaltending most of the season. I think that they're going to look at it and say we can afford to be patient. We're going to be patient, and we're going to stay the course.
Yeah. And just, you mentioned Doughty and Brown, Athanasio also from the forward ranks, and then two more defensemen, Walker and Anderson on LTIR.
Well, I tell you what, Sean Walker, this guy, maybe we haven't seen him play enough, but what he did for Canada at the World Championships a year ago, there was an expectation he was going to be one of the top two guys in Los Angeles, and he's only played, I think, 4 games this season. For them not to have
games.
him, for them to not have him all season was a huge blow to them, and the fact that they're this close without him is a really positive sign.
Well, and it's him and Doughty both from the right side, John, too, as you know, so it's hard to lose those right shot defensemen.
John, if I'm not mistaken, Hart Trophy voting, that's underway right now. People have already submitted their ballots, I'm guessing, some people.
Only people in Toronto, Blake. Only people in Toronto.
Yes. No, but I mean, they open the window up early, right? So, like, it's too late for anybody to really make an impression from here on in. So, in a lot of ways, we're talking about who, to this point, is the Hart Trophy winner, because if you submit your ballot early before the end of the season, you're not going to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. But, who's made an impression? I say that because, yes, Matthews is the first star, but Huberdeau is also one of the stars of the week in the National Hockey League. And there's some votes in his corner as well for those following the Panthers.
Well, on your ballot, you get to put 5 guys. So, and then the finalists are the top 3. And what I think is if you take the list, I think a couple of players have, maybe at least one player has played himself off that list, and that's Igor Shesterkin, the goaltender for the Rangers, because he was getting a lot of plaudits early, or at least after the All-Star break. But I think you have to put Matthews, Huberdeau, Johnny Gaudreau on that list, Connor McDavid for sure, and then I think Roman Josi could end up being at the top of a lot of lists on both the Norris Trophy and on the Hart Trophy. I think when you look at what they have done and how he has been so involved in their success, I think Roman Josi has to be on that list as well.
I'm going to stump for him if he continues to keep this up, just because of the rarity of what we're seeing from defense. I mean, he's already over a point per game. He's 87. He's 10th right now in league scoring. He's got an outside shot at 100, but to get over 90, because he's not like Mike Green. He can play the defensive side of the puck. He's playing 25 minutes a night, for heaven's sake. I mean, to me, that is, by the way the Hart Trophy is awarded, at least by the letter of the criteria as well. To me, he is adjudged most valuable to his team.
I agree. And I was trying to think, the last defenseman to win the Hart Trophy, would that have been Chris Pronger?
I think it was Pronger 20 years ago, John.
Yeah, when he was a dominant force in St. Louis. So from that perspective, I would, and again, a team that everybody had thought that the Predators were on the way out. We're going to have a difficult time fighting for a playoff spot. Now they are having a difficult time fighting for a playoff spot, but I think they're going to make it. So Roman Josi to me is one of those guys. I'm not even sure he's a dark horse. He's just different than all those other guys who rack up tons of points.
Yeah. Pronger in 2000, the last defenseman, and Carey Price in 2015, the last goaltender.
It's almost like we don't want to give the Hart Trophy to the defense, because you're not telling me that was the last time that there was a superhuman defensive season. I mean, there's been lots since then, and it's like the voters just are not attracted to it. What do you make of Sidney Crosby's season? 75 points in 61 games at his age. Do I have to say at his age, or is it just unequivocally a fabulous season for Sidney Crosby?
Well, I don't know. Has Sid had a bad season? I don't think he has.
No.
I mean,
but eventually we should see signs of decline, and and we saw that a little bit the last 2 years where he was barely above a point per game. This is not barely above a point per game anymore, and he's past that point in terms of age.
Well, not only that, it's the people he drags along with him on so many different levels. Whether for the first 3 years of his career, it was Jake Gensel, and then there was that whole horde of guys that were playing on the sides, whether it was Rust or Sheary at one point. Now it's Rodriguez, who's in there once in a while. He's just an amazing athlete. He truly is. consistent, competitive. The good news is, for the most part, healthier in the last couple of years. And that's part and parcel of why he will be viewed as, in my mind, one of the greatest players ever to play the game when he retires. But they're in many ways, that Pittsburgh team, they're a bit of my dark horse in the Eastern Conference. I really like the way they play. I think that when you think that Malkin and Letang are at the end of contracts, is this their last season there? Does that give them enough impetus to make a difference for that one final push to the Stanley Cup final?
The reason I bring it up, he's on even games played right now, 1,100. He's on even points now in his career, 1,400.
Wow.
Just showing
There's
no
a few
signs.
behind Ovechkin, right? And those two continue to do. John mentions Letang and Malkin, Brian Rust as well. So like 3 of the top UFAs this summer, if they get there, all Penguins. Did we have the Mount Rushmore discussion last week? Does Sidney make it?
Not with me.
And everyone is different. No, everyone is different, of course, John. But I think many would have Gretzky, Lemieux, and Orr. Mm-hmm. I think if you're a certain vintage, Gordie Howe is probably number 4. But Blake was telling me that he thinks for younger people, maybe Gordie or one of those 4 takes a backseat to Ovechkin or Crosby.
It really, you have to couch it with the description of what your Mount Rushmore means to you. Just the greatest players, or if you've pioneered the position in a lot of ways. So does that player get extra points for sort of being the first of his particular kind? Like, you need more than just name your 4, the 4 best players. Best at what? And there's context needed, I think.
Well, the bottom line is there's more than 4 on Mount Rushmore. I mean, why didn't the guy actually carve 9 faces in? Then we would have an easier problem.
Much easier.
I think it was a 30-year project to begin with, Shannon. You wanted to double it.
And quite frankly, he never finished. Let's be honest. He never finished Mount Rushmore, because they were supposed, by the way, those figures were supposed to be full body. They were supposed to be full bodies from
You're
the floor.
making this up.
No, I am not.
There is also...
I am not making it up.
Suits and ties? Really? That would have been something.
Yeah. Also, the sculptor was found out to have some really terrible things in his background.
In his past.
Yes, exactly.
But the original concept was supposed to be full statues. So,
wow.
But anyway, that aside, I mean, it's Monday Trivia Day, right? So, and it explains why, in many ways, the NHL, when they did their top 100 players, they did it by decade, as opposed to by 1 to 100. Because dare you pick Orr over Gretzky? Dare you pick Howe over Orr or Gretzky? Dare you pick Richard? The recency bias of our sport. And you have to be respectful for it. The recency bias of our sport puts all of that in context. I mean, some would. I heard it as soon as you said, "Well, give Orr credit for being that first guy." Well, you know what? Dick Irvin's in the back of my head saying, "Well, Doug Harvey did it before Orr did," because he used to say it all the time. Because we'd give Orr credit, and then Dick would say, "Well, Doug Harvey did it first." And so it is almost by generation. There's almost and you find a way to delineate, 67 to 80. That's a good 13-year delineation. Who are the top 4 players in the game at that point? How do you look at what the Islanders and Oilers and the Penguins did between 80 and 92? Look at the faces and the bodies that dominated our sport over that 12-year period. It is phenomenal to think all the different faces and names, and how differently they did it too. Not everybody did it the same way. So you almost have to have about 5 Mount Rushmores.
Moving along here. Another week has gone by. Haven't heard anything about Coach Boudreau and the Canucks. What have you heard in this last week?
Nothing. And I don't suspect we'll hear anything until after the season's over. I really don't. I think that no different than a player contract. I just think that both sides they have one common goal right now, and they're going to live with that common goal until something has to move. And right now, it doesn't change how this team plays the game between now and the end of the month. So just get the games done, and then we'll figure out that one in the month of May.
And they're still winning too, right? Like things would look really bad on this franchise right now if they were swirling around the drain here after after it became nearly mathematical for them. Because then it would seem like it was a distraction, but it's seemingly not a distraction. They keep winning here.
I think it's only a distraction for the media at this point. I really do, because and this goes back to the learning curve that everybody has with how Rutherford, Alvin, and Boudreau conduct business. Even though everybody called him Trader Jim, and there's going to be lots of movement, in the end, Jim was adamant. I don't think I'm going to do very much. And nobody believed him. So this all becomes part of the learning curve of understanding how this management group will work, and what the intent of this management group will be over the next little while. And we can suppose all we want. We can think all we want, but there's really only 3 people, maybe 4 if you include ownership. There's 4 people that really know what's going on.
I wonder whether this management group has designs on another coach, and whether the relationship between Paul Maurice and Jim Rutherford is something to watch here as we go forward.
Well, we know they're best of friends. We know that if you hire a coach twice, you have ultimate respect for him. I still remember I still remember one of the people that showed up when Jimmy Rutherford's mother passed away. One of the guys that showed up was Paul Maurice at the funeral. There is an affinity between the two. But that said, I mean, I think I'm just stating facts as opposed to stating any rumor and innuendo. No one has heard really from Paul since he left the Jets before Christmas. And who knows if he even wants to coach again.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is there any appetite for him to come back? Because he seemed like he needed a break at the end of that with Winnipeg, right?
Yeah. I think I'll be honest, and again, this is my personal opinion, I think he needed a break, and I think that players needed a break from Paul too. Because obviously they had stopped listening. I mean, he admitted they had stopped listening. It was and Winnipeg was a tough road to hoe this year because I'm not sure the players wanted to listen to anybody.
Quite right. Okay, you keep your ear to the ground. We will miss you next Monday because of the Easter long weekend, but we'll catch up in a couple of weeks, and at that point we'll be down in the final week there, right? In the regular season, looking towards the Stanley Cup playoffs.
The season we thought would never end is coming to an end.
Yes, indeed.
It's a long season, guys. It's a long season.
Oh,
too long.
Oh, boy. These last few years, too, even not 82 games have just have dragged. You'll remember last year, John, Vancouver and Calgary had some makeup games to do at the end of the season. You want to talk about
those Monday afternoon at 2:00?
Yeah, talk about a Tuesday matinee from the Saddle Dome.
Oh my
when everyone else is done playing.
Push those out of my memory.
Oh my. Thank you, my friend.
All right, boys. Have a great day.
See
you too. John Shannon, everybody, the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, the co-host of the Bob McCown.
I can't help but thinking that the playoffs have begun as early as April 11th in years gone by. Often in the first round of the playoffs, we're watching games on patios and it's sunny and nice outside. It's freaking cold. It's like the Mother Nature's like, oh, well, if we're still in the regular season, we'll make sure it stays cold for you.
My brother's been here for a few weeks and he goes, way sunnier than people say, colder.
Yeah. No, this is not normal.
I told him, I said, we're now beyond the pale in terms of what's regular temperature.
By the way, speaking of Paul Maurice's former team, there's another team that the Canucks have to worry about in terms of,
last night, right?
Yeah. So they aren't done giving a bleep either. And so it's not just Canucks versus the teams above the bar. The Canucks and the Jets are neck and neck. They are 1 point separated. So heck, if the Canucks think they're in it, certainly the Jets think they're in it as well. So it's still a crowded race, and the Jets and the Canucks have a long way to go.
Well, and the Jets are play tonight one of two teams to play tonight. And of course, could leapfrog the Canucks, albeit with one.
It'll be a game in
additional
hand at the
game.
end of the night. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they got Montreal, so I suspect they will leapfrog the Canucks with a victory over Les Habitants.